Incredibly, Doctor Strange, as the one who is portrayed as Marvel's key man to fight against God at both the creation of the universe and the end times, had a test run prior to his existence to see if the world was ready for a superhero modeled by Satanist Aleister Crowley in the form of Dr. Droom, not to be confused with Dr. Doom. Dr. Droom, as the Sorcerer Supreme, was a precursor to the one who would eventually be recast as Doctor Strange just 2 years later. Now notice the obvious resemblance between the magician Dr. Droom in his first appearance in 1961 and the obvious resemblance to Satanist and magician Aleister Crowley. There's no doubt once you examine the facts that Dr. Droom and later Dr. Strange were based on Satanist Aleister Crowley. In his Marvel origin story, Dr. Droom, like Aleister Crowley, is British. Like Crowley, he desires to go to the East for more occult knowledge. He states that he wants to acquire first-hand knowledge and learn about the mystical arts and practices. Like Crowley, Dr. Droom actually goes all the way to the Himalayas. Crowley made repeated infamous trips to the Himalayas, one in 1902 where he waved his revolver at other climbers and insisted he take his occult library up K2. Crowley returned to the Himalayas in 1905 when 4 members of his team fell to their deaths. He didn't even respond to their cries for help. He wrote that he had no sympathy for them and that he had passed their dead bodies later without even stopping. These deaths would be but a few of the many mysterious deaths that followed Crowley in his wicked wake, including several suicides and many professed child sacrifices. In Dr. Droom's origin story, he goes to visit an alien Tibetan Lama who needs medical attention. He will only find years later that the ancient Lama is the Ancient One in disguise. The Lama makes Dr. Droom face a series of trials to prove himself because he is dying and wants Dr. Droom to follow in his footsteps as the master of black magic. In a reprint of Dr. Droom's original Amazing Adventures, Dr. Droom reappears with a new look and a new name as Dr. Druid. Here we see that Dr. Droom is now given some hair, so he is no longer made to look like Aleister Crowley. Perhaps because by the 1970s, too many people were now aware of who the Satanist was, and they would have made the damning connection that Marvel was glorifying a perverted Satanist and professed child killer in popular children's comics. Like Satanist Aleister Crowley, who was known for synthesizing various forms of Western magic with Eastern mysticism, Dr. Droom and/or Druid learns how to integrate both Western and Eastern occultism. In the retelling of Dr. Droom's origin story, he is not only a Brit that goes to the Himalayas to study the occult, but like Crowley, we read that the Tibetan tells him, "Within you, Dr. Druid, lies the power of the ancient Britons, and with my added knowledge of the East, you could never fall prey to the unknown. Do you accept my gift of wisdom?" Satanist Aleister Crowley, as you can see, also used the eye in the triangle as a symbol of the new eon of the hawk-headed god of Horus. When Crowley wrote his Book of the Law, he claims to have taken dictation from a demonic entity called Aiwass, who he later identifies as Satan himself. Near the end of the Book of the Law, Horus, or Satan, declares, quote, "With my hawk's head, I peck out the eyes of Jesus as he hangs upon the cross." Thus, the Eye of Horus was symbolic of the new satanic age and the rise of the Antichrist. Here we see that Dr. Droom, now called Dr. Druid, like Crowley, also used the occult symbol of the eye in the triangle. We see this symbol over and over again in depictions of Dr. Droom. Of course, the eye in the triangle was later worked into the Supreme Sorcerer Dr. Strange's attire as well, but then called the Eye of Agamotto instead of the Eye of Horus. Calling it the Eye of Horus would have been just too obvious. Stan Lee, who said he always liked Dr. Droom, further stated, "And one day, while we were trying to think of some new heroes, I thought I'd like to bring back a magician, and I gave him the name Dr. Strange." Even Wikipedia got this one right, stating, according to Lee, Dr. Droom was essentially succeeded by Dr. Strange. However, while Dr. Strange was no longer bald like Dr. Droom, or even balding like Droom's retelling as Dr. Druid, Stan Lee still created Dr. Strange in the image of the Crowleyan Dr. Droom as the Supreme Sorcerer. They even blatantly borrowed major elements from Dr. Droom's origin story, which again mirrored much of the life of Satanist Aleister Crowley. Like Dr. Droom, Dr. Strange goes to visit the Ancient One. Though no longer disguised as a Tibetan Lama, Dr. Strange, like Dr. Droom, also goes to the Himalayas. This time to a place called Kamar Taj, described as, quote, "a hidden land high in the Himalayas." However, this time rather than going to give medical attention, as Dr. Droom did, Dr. Strange goes to receive medical attention for his mangled hands, which were harmed in a car accident. Like Dr. Droom, the arrogant Dr. Strange must pass a test before he is conferred with the power of black magic. Note in this comic how Dr. Droom, or Druid, is told that he was the precursor to Dr. Strange, and how Dr. Druid responds by stating, "But I never imagined I was simply a test run for Dr. Strange." Hey, Joe Schimmel here. We want to thank you for watching. We want to also encourage you not to forget to sign up or subscribe to Good Fight Ministries YouTube channel. We have the most amazing content. We also have the very popular Good Fight radio show where we examine all kinds of things in light of scripture, as well as 511 News, which is also very eye-opening. And we also have mind-blowing video exposés that you won't see anywhere else. So thanks again. We'll see you later, and we just pray that the Lord blesses you richly as you seek his face. God bless.